mystery and horror, the air itself is filled with monsters.
Children of the night, what music they make. It's alive! It's alive!
Well, hello, all you monster fiends, and thank you for joining us for another deep dive, factoid-filled episode exploring Hollywood's most famous monsters. I am your mistress of ceremonies, Sam, and I am joined, as always, by Dan from Bleeding Marvelous. Say hello, Dan.
We all go a little bit mad sometimes, don't we? Oh yeah!
Once again, I'm gone. Each week. You'll not do it next week.
You don't know. You don't know what I'll do.
No, I don't. That's the scary thing. I don't know what you'll do. But I know what we're talking about tonight. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Monsters Up North podcast. Oh, today we are checking in to one of the greatest motels. I know it's my favorite. It's probably Dan's favorite as well. Motels of all time. We're doing Psycho. Yay. Yeah. That. We're not doing the remake. That didn't happen. We're not even that. Didn't.
And Hesh's butthole will not be discussed this evening.
Yeah, the fact that I know that. No Anne Hesh's butthole. May she rest in peace. Literally. And so what I'll do is I will do as I always do. I'll read the disclaimer and then we're going to crack on open Psycho. Actually, I can't believe it's taken us this amount of time to do Psycho.
Correct. It's an obvious choice. When you sit there and we're going through shit and we're like, oh God, we've done so many, what can we possibly do? And we're like, oh my God, we've got like this list of over 100 films that are so obvious that we've not even touched yet. And we're like, how have we not done that? How have we not done that?
Do you know why it is? The blob changed everything.
The blob's fault.
The blob. Right. Well, everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us on our Facebook pages. You can join us on the Nerdy Up North Discord or the comment section where we can have an open discussion. But what we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong, because we can all agree to disagree in horror. So let's keep it fun. Keep it kind, and keep the toxic behavior out of a nerdism.
Don't be Patrick.
Yay.
Or an Anthony, or a Norman.
Any one of them will do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone. Well, Psycho is the 1960 American horror film. I don't know why I've put American horror film. Don't ask us. Produced and directed by Sir Alfred Hitchcock.
Get in the bin.
The screenplay, written by Joseph Stefano, was based on the 1959 novel of the same name by Paul Bloch. The film stars Anthony Perkins, Janet Leigh, Vera Mills, John Gavin, and Martin Bass. The screen master of suspense movies. What? Hold on. The screen master of suspense moves his camera into the icy blackness of the unexplained. Oh, fuck this up. Monsters Up North brings you Psycho. Oh, that was such a good tagline.
That's bizarre.
The screen master of suspense moves his camera into the icy blackness of the unexplained. Why can't I say unexplained?
He was such a dramatic queen, wasn't he, old Hitchcock?
Yeah, this film just proves it all.
But even in the way he did the promotions for this movie, I don't know if you read about that, like how he wouldn't. What he did actually started a snowball of events, but he put he had every cinema have a big cardboard cutout of him in the lobby. And it would say on this cardboard cutout that once you were admitted, you couldn't come out, and also if you turned up late, you weren't allowed in.
Yeah.
And he'd have records playing in the lobby saying 10 minutes to Psycho, 5 minutes till Psycho, 3 minutes till Psycho. And inevitably, what that ended up becoming is it started cinema times where a film started and a film finished and you could leave. Before, you could turn up in the middle of a film and stay all the way through to the next film and not vacate your seat. And this was like Hitchcock's kind of inadvertently started this weird chain of events that makes cinema goers like us do what we do now. It's bizarre.
It's crazy the snowball effect that it had, but who does he remind you of when it comes to the promotion of this movie? Our friend William Castle.
Yes, I mean, they're very...
to a certain degree.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the theatrics are there, but Hitchcock is just too serious. Castle thought everything was fun.
Yeah, Hitchcock took this to the extreme, to the point where he didn't allow the actors to even have a script. He would give them sections of it until they filmed the whole thing. So the acting in this movie is incredible, knowing the fact that they never read a script beforehand.
Yeah, and it all had to be like edited together, because I think they started filming in something like, I want to say it was either September, November, sometime around then in 1959, and it was fully edited and ready to go by the April of 1960. Now, I don't know what month it was released in, but it was fully edited and fully done by then. I mean, it ran over by 9 days, the filming, which then cost the company a lot of money. However, because he had filmed it in black and white, which was a choice because all of his movies up to that point had been in color. It wasn't, it wasn't an age thing. It wasn't
No.
time. He just stylistically thought, A, it would be cheaper, and B, it looked a bit better for some of the suspense scenes.
And the blood.
And obviously the chocolate sauce,
The blood.
But this film, I have a few issues with this film. I love it up until the bit where Marion inevitably has the shower scene. And then after that, I find it incredibly boring until Sam and Marion's sister find Mrs. Bates. That whole section there, my mind wanders off. It is just boring. Yeah. But I know there's a lot of issues with the exposition at the end as well, like that scene at the end where they're like, why was it added on? It didn't make any sense. Not the bit where it's Norman talking, Mother's talking to Norman, but it was a little bit just before then. Well, I mean, we'll get there, but I actually thought it was quite well handled for 1960. Considering the topics that were covered in it. It was like he was setting all the old fuddy-duddies straight about what was what, and I was just like, I don't know why people had an issue with this. It was an odd place. It was edited in an odd place for the film, but apparently that was a studio choice, not a Hitchcock choice.
And Hitchcock got his own way a lot on this movie, but so did his wife, because his wife Alma, who was a massive collaborator of Hitchcock's, doesn't really get the credit she deserves.
She put up with a lot of shit from him, though.
Did she? Oh, did she? Did she just? I remember back in the day, going to Universal Studios, Florida, and I would have been about 15, yeah, because I started college that year. So yes, 15, going into 16, and going to the Alfred Hitchcock experience, which I believe now is the Shrek ride, if it's still there. I have not been there in a very long time, but it was the Alfred Hitchcock experience, and it was you walked in to it was like a wait line, like the bars, and you wait and you go around, but at the same time there's this big massive theater, like cinema screen on, and it's showing you a montage of all of these films. And in that moment I am instantly like, what the fuck is this? And then we go into the experience, which is where you go on a film set and you recreate certain scenes from some of Hitchcock's most famous movies. And one of them was Rear Window. So you got to look through binoculars at houses, and Rear Window is one of my favorite Hitchcock films. Like Psycho is, and The Birds is up there, but I love Jimmy Stewart in that movie. It is, and Grace Kelly. Oh, I love it. And they had clips from Psycho and The Birds and Vertigo and what's the other one? Marnie. And I just instantly had this love, this connection, and I was like, I need more. And I took that home with us. It didn't leave us. I took that home with us. And I remember trying to find a copy of Psycho, and it was so hard. It wasn't in, in shops or anything like that. I found it in my college library on VHS, and I got a membership to the library, took out the video, and went home. And what if I hadn't watched it? What I watched it 1,000 times, and I will never forget my sister walking in, not watching any of the film, but walking in right at the end where you've got Norman and Mother.
Yeah.
And the face is like, and she freaked the fuck out. She still to this day gets scared of that scene. But yeah, I had this whole like, oh, it was just like a moment, like such a monumental moment of who is this person and these movies. And that's when I started getting my books, my little Bible of, how he made films. I own every single Alfred Hitchcock film, but they're from Japan. Dad, eBay, long story, got too carried away, but he got me the full collection. It's in a black box and it's all in English, like they're all English movies and no subtitles, but all of the writing on the front is all Japanese. I can't read any of the booklets or anything, but it's so beautiful. But Psycho always, for all I love, there's other Hitchcock movies I love. Psycho stayed with us.
I've been lucky enough to go to the LA Universal,
Mm.
and I have sat on steps of the Bates house on 3 or 4 occasions. Because when you do the VIP tour, they let you get off the tram and you can walk around, and you go up past the Bates Motel at first, and every time they have an actor come out, putting a body into the boot of the car.
I've seen that so many times.
Obviously it's a guy dressed up as Norman putting the body in the car, and then what he does is he looks at you as he's putting the roof, like the bonnet, the boot down on the car, and he looks at the tram, and you see him and he starts to run after the tram, but then he gets so far and then he stops, and then he looks like, yes mother, and then he walks off like back.
I would literally be like going, Norman.
But then you go up, and because of the way that they lay it out, the house itself is right next to the War of the Worlds plane crash. So you've got the house.
What a transition.
Yeah, you've got the house on top of the hill, and then you've got this exploded like plane that is a proper Boeing and everything like laid out right next to it. But I first went in 2010 and saw it, and we could walk around. We were allowed to take photos on the porch. And then when I went back in 2018 with Leslie and Dave and Rob, we did Halloween Horror Nights there, and they have a scare maze which takes you actually through the Bates Motel and then up into that, like you can't go in the house, but it takes you up to the top where they let you have photos with the Norman actors. And there's us with a guy who was playing Norman, and I was trying to out Norman in the picture because I was trying to look more miserable than Norman in the picture. And then
I've seen your miserable pictures. You do a good misery picture.
Yeah, it's better than smiling. And then I've been back probably twice more, I think, since then, and it's one of my favorite bits. So when I heard that they were going to take it down, I was so annoyed and so upset. And then I found out they stopped. They're not going to take it down now because they had so much heat over the fact that people like it's an institution. You can't do that.
No.
But I do know that Universal has a soundstage named after Alfred Hitchcock, and it's the Mixing Soundstage 6. But then, did you know there's also one in Warner Brothers Studio?
I didn't know the Warner Brothers one, but there is some gray areas when it comes to the distribution of this movie. Yes. So this is technically Paramount's last film from Hitchcock.
Yeah.
But he signed a contract with Universal, and they somehow got the rights.
Yeah, they probably bought it out of contract or something from Paramount or something like that. But when you do the tour through and you do the VIP tour, they show you where they shot Rear Window.
Oh.
and you've got the street still exists where all the external shots were made, because they take you through all the streets. Which if you're on the standard tram tour, they just take you around the edge and they take you around a few streets. But when you're on the VIP one, they take you backwards and forwards, and you go and you see all the bits that you wouldn't normally be able to see.
Oh my
And they
God.
showed the rear window, the bit from Rear Window outside, and they were like, "Yep, that's where you see Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly," and then and they were explaining it all. And
Oh, I got to look through binoculars and look at an exterior wall that had loads of little videos playing, and you saw different things in every window, and it's like where you're meant to be looking, who's doing what. I love that film so much. It was North by Northwest was the movie set.
yeah,
And I think it's Cary Grant who's Cary Grant who's
yeah,
running down the thingy and the whole falling off the building. Oh, was that Vertigo? Might be Vertigo. And you had someone sitting on a paddle thing, lying back, and the camera was here, and they're waving their arms around, and I was like, I'm not doing that. Oh, the experience. Honestly, I was devastated when we went back, like not the next year, the year after, and it was all boarded up, and I was like, well, where's all the stuff gone? Like,
yeah.
I'll
No,
take us. And I'm devastated I never picked up any Bates Motel merchandise. I was so overwhelmed by that whole experience. I was like, I'll do it another time. And that other time never came.
they do sell Bates Motel merch now, still just standard in their universal shops. So, but
Good to
it's
know.
to be as well received as he still is, considering the scandal that man had. The influence that he must have had in the eyes of Hollywood clearly outweighs his discrepancies. Because when you're on the Warner Brothers tour, you drive down this road, and they have the whole Hitchcock building, which is where all the writers are. And it's not called the Hitchcock building because it's just got his silhouette of his pompous ass face on the front of it. And then as you drive down, next door is the studios where they do all the readings and the write-ins for the Big Bang.
Yeah.
When I went, that's Big Bang was still on, but and then you see all the car parking spaces. So you see like Penny, Leonard. You had all their car parking spaces just outside the front. So when they were doing their read-throughs and stuff, so that was pretty cool. But the fact that like he's still given as much.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what the word is I'm looking
Airs
for.
and graces
But
is
yeah,
the best
people,
second. People
yeah,
still blow a fucking fanfare for him.
how highly regarded he is, considering his indiscrepancies and just the way he treated not only the leading ladies but anyone that worked for him. He was a pig.
Apart from Janet Leigh.
Well, because she wouldn't stand for it, would she?
He was terrified of Tony Curtis.
Yeah. Yeah, because this was the whole thing, because her and Tony got married in like 1955. I think it was something around there, because I did look into their personal lives because I was quite interested in that, because obviously this film, a lot of people know a lot of the stuff anyway, but I looked into the personal lives of like Janet and Tony, and a little bit on Alfred Hitchcock, but I don't want to give him too much credence, because but Janet and Tony got married in the 50s, and the thing I find funny is they had 2 kids. Janet had been married twice before.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She got married, right? I found this bit out. She was married at the age of 15.
That's not uncommon.
No, but she told them she was 18, and her dad marched her up the thing, and they got the wedding annulled. So that technically was the first wedding. She married somebody prior to marrying Tony, but when she married Tony, she had her 2 kids. She had Kelly and she had Jamie. But did you know, the thing I find the funniest is Janet Leigh's real name is Jeanette Helen Morrison.
I knew that. And
Tony Curtis's real name is Bernard Schwartz.
Yes.
So we would have had they not changed their names, Jamie Morrison Schwartz, not Jamie Lee Curtis. So I'm guessing she wouldn't have been as popular because
the Curtis name held some gravity.
It really did, but Tony was a shit, and some of the stuff that they went through is insane. She was at the time as well. She was being pursued. That was the word I was looking for, by Howard Hughes.
Oh, well, of course.
And if those of you don't know who Howard Hughes is, there's a movie that best explains him. It's a sprout-faced DiCaprio movie, but it's called The Aviator. And Howard Hughes was scared of his own shadow. He wore tissue boxes for shoes. He became a germaphobe of the extreme.
But he was a bit of a genius, though.
The plane, the whole spruce goose thing. The man knew his shit, but he wasn't afraid to lose money over things that he gave a shit about.
No.
But yeah, he was insistent with Janet Leigh of the pursuing of her for marriage, and she just wasn't interested. But Tony Curtis had been offered 30 grand by one of the studios he'd worked for to marry Piper Laurie.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because she was his co-star in a couple.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
Sorry, Piper.
But he said that he just wasn't attracted to her, and for the sake of $30,000, it wasn't worth it because he's not interested. He found her quite vile and quite a very unpleasant person, very suspicious of everybody, was what Tony said about her.
Do you know, just I mean, this is just going off Carrie alone. She had that face.
Yeah. He was tempted by the money for a bit, but he refused because Jerry Lee Lewis said to him that if he was to run away with Janet and get married to Janet, he'd be committing career suicide.
Fuck, I am not fucking taking advice from Jerry Lee Lewis.
I'm going to marry my 13-year-old cousin, but you commit career suicide by running off with another woman that's legally of age. And it's a fucking family member. Nice one, Jerry.
Fucking cretin of a man. I know that Tony and Janet did not have a great relationship. I remember this post she put up on Instagram, and my God, this just goes to prove how amazing this woman actually is. She said in this post of the issues that her and her dad had, the issues that her dad had single-handedly, the issues that the mum and her dad had, and at the end of the day, when all's said and done, she still loved him.
Yeah, I mean, her step
that was still was
her dad. She
but that was her father.
Yeah,
she said that give her her name, that give her a start. And it was the way if you go back on Jamie's Instagram and try and find it, because the words are so powerful, and it's all about forgiveness.
Yeah,
like he's not here anymore. I can't sit here. I'm not blaming him for anything that I did in my life. Did that by myself. It was just such a beautiful thing to come out of what was probably a really shitty situation for her, and she managed to turn it around and make it into a positive. She didn't even have the greatest relationship with her mother at times.
No.
But towards the end, they were inseparable.
Apparently, Janet would get incredibly infuriated by Tony when they were in public situations, because Janet was of a certain class and she was put together a certain way. She wasn't snobby, but it was just how she was brought up to act proper. Whereas Tony was he was brought up in a neighborhood where everything was a bit lower class. He didn't understand propriety the way that he, came across. So that caused like a division there. But Tony actually found a letter written to Janet, which was a love letter from Bob Fosse.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And he then presumed they were having an affair, but Janet still swore it was just a letter that he sent her. Unrequited, right? Oh. It was unrequited, but they were friends. So Tony then decided, in his infinite wisdom, he'd start spending a lot of time down the Playboy mansion.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Tony.
With old Hef. And
he can fucking rot and all.
He then, once he was hanging around there, had a tryst with a then 18-year-old girl called Natalie Wood. So he had an affair with Natalie Wood, and his excuse was, this is the quote, "I was 30 years old, in my prime, and beautiful girls with fantastic figures were constantly throwing themselves at me. I decided that from that point on, I would partake more fully of the bounty of being offered to me." And do you know what I put after that? Gross.
Disgusting.
Gross. You were a married man. You had 2 children. If you didn't like her, I know the 60s were different, but fuck me, they were a bit more open about divorce and stuff like that.
Fucking divorce was not off the cards. Jesus wept, like.
Yeah, that I was just like, ugh. I don't know. that whole quote was just like, ugh.
Do you know when I watch Some Like It Hot, and I love that film so much. It's so fucking. It's still to this day like is hilarious. But all I keep thinking of is Tony and Jack are just not in the same caliber at all. Like Jack Lemmon is a fucking god, and Tony Curtis can like I don't know. This is just my personal opinion, but I always think Jack Lemmon, you take over this movie so much that he is literally in your dust.
I've been to Lemon's grave a couple of times.
When it says starring in.
Yeah, it's in that weird one. He's buried across from Betty Page and Vampira and
He is next to
Caroline, and he's in the same one with all those guys. He's actually Heffy's in there as well, and Marilyn.
Yeah, he's right there.
It's not Forever Young, not the Forever one. It's the other one. It's the other one. Brothers.
Hollywood Forever and Brentwood. No, that's where Marilyn lived.
Thingy Brothers. I can't think of what it's called, but
oh, good God, Sam! The amount of fucking times you've watched
Graveyards or whatever it's called.
Hollywood Graveyards.
Yeah.
It's great. She's got to put a new video out. It's been fantastic. But I think he's next to because Kurt Douglas is there now. Farrah Fawcett, he's in that line.
Right.
Whoa, how do I know this? Yeah, and on his grave it just says Jack Lemmon starring in.
Yeah. It's a lovely, like he's got one of the nicest setups because a lot of them have been forgotten over time, being the fact that they are as old as they are, like Betty and then Vampira, they sort of.
Oh, Vampira still gets a lot of love. She actually had a ceremony for her 100th birthday. Not last year yet, for.
So they would have cleaned, it would have been cleaned up.
Yeah, so they had a huge ceremony. Friends of hers came to talk. Her niece, who published the book, the biography of Vampira, she was there. Who Hollywood Graveyards were there. Arthur Dark, what an amazing name. But who videoed it? Who was the video? Was it Grim Life? It was Grim Life. They were invited. That's a good video. It's a lovely, lovely ceremony for someone a name who should never ever be forgotten.
Yeah.
But Betty's the same.
Yeah, and I just thought it was nice to have a quick look into them because whilst technically Janet Leigh is only on screen for a grand total of 45 minutes out of an hour and 48-minute movie, she is the starring ingenue. She is the main focus of this movie.
100%, but she's the worst fucking character.
Oh God,
Marion Crane is horrible.
Now, can we talk about in 1960 how scandalous that opening scene must have been?
Oh, the censors had a fucking field day with this one. So the opening scene of the movie, you have Sam Loomis and Marion Crane. The positions of the bed, is it separate beds that they had to use? But I think they pushed them together a little bit. Like they had to get around the censors so badly because, heaven forbid, Marion was in a bra
and a slip.
Yeah.
And they were white. They were white, and you never saw a woman prior to this so scantily clad for such a large period of time. Like I think if there was ever a woman seen in a bra, it was a quick like moment, and it was gone. If it was at all, it was very quick.
They tried it with Marilyn. So her last movie was going to be called Something's Got to Give. Title then goes to another movie later on, but her last movie, and there is shots that were done from it, and there is a pool scene,
right,
where they use the pool as the guard, but she puts her leg up.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where she's got to, and that was a bit, but that's the boundaries that they were pushing. This helps that.
Yeah. She didn't care. Janet really couldn't give a flying monkeys about what her thought was about this. She was like, okay. And he was like, I think the thing about Janet was she never put up a fight. She never had questions that would annoy Alfred either, because the shit that goes down with him is you've got to be able to hold your own around Alfred.
Mhm.
Tippi Hedren didn't know how to do that, hence why you have the book, the movie. I think is it Toby Stevens plays Hitchcock in that? Not Stevens, Toby Jones.
Oh, Toby Jones, yes.
He plays Hitchcock and he does a bloody good version of Hitchcock.
Yeah.
But Naomi Watts plays Tippi Hedren in that film, and it's all about the
Mhm.
making of the birds, and it's based off the book that Tippi Hedren wrote about her experiences with him. And basically, she didn't fit the mold. She rejected him, so he made her life an absolute misery on that set. She was a married woman. She had children, but
Yeah.
he still insisted on making her life a living hell. And
Who are Vera Mills? Look at the treat, and this is in this film. This is the last contracted film that Vera had to do for Hitchcock, because what you've got to understand, studios are not the way that we are today.
no,
It doesn't work. It didn't work that way. You had an actress or an actor who would sign to a studio, whether that be Paramount, Universal Studios, RKO, places like that,
yeah,
and you would sign a deal to say you would be contracted to 5 movies.
yeah,
You'd be lucky if you got 5 movies in one contract,
yeah, and
and
you
you
were
had to
alone
fulfill.
picture
Yeah.
houses and stuff. Yeah,
And you literally had to fulfill every single one of them. It didn't matter which one it was. And this was Vera's last one with Hitchcock under her contract with Paramount. And he made her life so fucking miserable on this movie set. He tormented her. He all because once again didn't go for his advances. Vera was, again, I think she was married, kids, and he put all, because Janet wouldn't give him the satisfaction,
yeah.
he took it all out on Vera, from what I've read.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find this bit. I was listening to everything you're saying, so I don't think I was being rude, but I'm trying to find this bit where there was this quote about one of the people he worked with and what she had to say about him. And I know I put it down, so I'm kind of annoyed.
Does it say is he was a twat?
Very similar. But I think it's here actually. Yeah, here we go. The French actress Brigitte Aubert, who was in To Catch a Thief,
Mhm.
she remarked he basically tried to kiss her and she told him to get off. And this is 1955, bear in mind. And she spoke up, which 1955, again, good for her.
Good for her, but it's not heard of. They don't do that.
Her quote was, "It is difficult when someone is so ugly like him. That turned out lower lip. When someone is ugly, it isn't their fault. The poor cabbage had a wonderful soul. I know. Just called him a cabbage.
Cabbage. Oh, I'm gonna forever know him as a cabbage.
Oh, I just thought, good for her, like.
No, yeah, good for her, because people don't do that. I always remember an interview with oh God, Jackie Collins, not Jackie Collins, Joan Collins.
Yeah.
And Joan Collins has been like, she's seen it all. She's seen the beginning, the casting couches, everything. And they asked her, and this was on like breakfast telly or something, and they asked her about Marilyn, because obviously, if you've met Marilyn, everyone wants to know a Marilyn story. And she was like, yeah, I've met Marilyn a few times. And she gave me some great bit of advice. She told me to make sure my knees were always clean. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yep, I know exactly what she means by that. So
that's just no. But yeah, that happened. So I'm really pleased that the women like her spoke out.
Yeah, he had a habit, like, of all the co-stars of all the women of all the shows, movies he did, like Ingrid Bergman, Grace Kelly, Eva Marie Saint, Kim Novak, and Lee. He would have this thing where he would have a courtship with them and then be incredibly vile and coarse towards them, inviting them for dinner in their house with his wife, and then next he'd take them, like, invite them to his trailer when he was on his own and just be a dirty old man. It was like, I don't know what his thoughts process of that was, but I'm glad that Janet didn't fall for it anyway, for sure.
No, she really didn't. And Norman. Anthony Perkins. So Anthony Perkins was the only choice for this movie.
Yeah.
No other, and I adore this man so much. I not only have a love for the first one, I love all the sequels because he's in every single one of them. And even is it Psycho 4 that's the radio show where he's starting to his life is together and then he's starting to get freaked out because things are starting to happen. She's starting to come back in there and he needs to push her out. And the end result is he sets the house on fire. Spoilers, by the way. I can't remember if that's 3 or 4. I can never remember where it goes up to, but that is one hell of a fucking film. Like his acting in that, and he was poorly at the time. Because if you didn't know,
Yeah.
Poor Anthony Hopkins, but Perkins, he passed away from AIDS-related
Pneumonia.
illness. Yeah.
Pneumonia.
And he was starting to get sick.
Yeah.
Towards that record. But oh my God, did he put everything on the table? Like his performance in that, you could see it's like normal Norman. Not normal Norman. Norman's normal. Like he's figured it out.
Yeah.
He's got his head, and then all of a sudden it just starts to break down and she's creeping back in there and he's talking to a radio, like a talk show radio host. And I think she played Amanda Waller once. She's really cool. She's like, oh, she's in Face Off. You know, when the scientists, she's she's in that. She's in all sorts.
Right.
You can pick her out at anything, but she was fantastic. And it's the majority of the film is just them two talking. I love it. Absolutely love it. But he is such and Hitchcock could not be nasty to him.
Well, do you know what his nickname was for him on set?
Go on.
Master Bates. Yeah, because he's that kind of grown up. But that's what he called him the whole time, and that he even had it printed on the back of his chair.
Oh,
but yeah, he apparently when Perkins got diagnosed, he called his family in and he said, and this is a quote: "I chose not to go public about this because, to misquote Casablanca, I'm not much at being noble, but it doesn't take too much to see that the problems of an old actor don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy old world." So he was like, I don't really want everybody knowing because stigma in 1992, because that's when he passed away, from an AIDS-related illness would automatically, the mindset was, oh, he must have been gay because everybody was thick in 92.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, no, he wasn't. It was still to this day, I couldn't find out exactly what it was, but the likelihood they said was it was a bad blood transfusion at some point, and that's where it came from.
Yeah,
because he had a blood transfusion, he got ill. I think he had an operation, and they think it was something to do with that.
It's the side of the AIDS story that they don't want to tell you, is that the majority of the people who had the infection was because of hospital errors, because of the potentially drugs was a main thing as well. But the staggering thing when it comes down to HIV numbers is the amount of women it affected. They don't talk about that. I'm not getting into that. That's for a whole different that's a whole different time.
Shame that was around it was why he didn't want to go public. He basically he brought his kids in. Now, his kids were Elvis and Osgood. Now, Osgood, some of you might know who Osgood is. Osgood was the name of his dad, of Anthony Perkins' dad, but he named his son after his dad. Osgood Perkins is we are to say thank you very much to Osgood for the direction he did on a new film called Longlegs. Osgood Perkins is the director of Longlegs. Yeah. He's also he's been in a lot of movies and people don't even know he's Anthony Perkins' son. If you have seen Legally Blonde, you know David, the little gimpy friend, that's Osgood. If you have seen Nope, more recently, the Jordan Peele movie, there's a director who's directing the TV show with the chimp. That's Osgood. When you go back and watch it, you see Perkins. You see the Perkins in it.
I can see it.
He also has been in Star Trek. He has been, and he also, his earliest foray into acting, because he wanted to be like his dad, was when he played a young Norman Bates in Psycho 2. So Osgood played a young version of his father. So they all call him Oz, but Yeah, so thanks to Osgood, we have the insanity that
I
is
know, I've heard it's crazy.
it
I mean,
is something that I'll have to go back and watch it again. But Cage does an amazing job there. Like, there's one part where you can tell it's Cage, and you're like, oh yeah, it's just him. But then there's other bits where he's just so it's another level for Cage. It's not the Cage we know. It's like this.
yeah,
The makeup helped, I think, make him emote to an extent of where
I
it
need to
just
watch this.
yeah, you
I
need a shower
really
afterwards.
need to watch this.
It's very slow, and I'm not usually a lover of slow movies,
I started to appreciate them a bit more.
but this one kept me not gripped, but it kept me like I was interested
Intrigued.
in it the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Osgood is becoming more and more, excuse me, more and more someone to look out for now.
Oh my
I love the
God.
fact he named his kid Elvis. I just found that brilliant. Elvis.
Yeah.
So
I would do it in a heartbeat, but you know, Anth wouldn't let us. Apparently, there was I'm gonna have to take my notes and kind of look and go from there because I don't want to fuck this story up because it's quite cool. Well, it's cool for me. Full story circulated that George Reeves
yeah,
was hired to play Detective Milton Arbogast. Why can I never say his name? And yeah, George Reeves is Superman.
And he's tragic. The way he died was absolutely tragic.
Yet it's so I have watched so many things with George Reeves is the original television Superman.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck played George Reeves in a biofilm. It is fucking brilliant. This is how Affleck has played Superman, Batman, Daredevil, and he's so good, and it's pretty good. But yeah, George Reeves' death is so mysterious because when you look at it on paper, you're like, oh, it's suicide. When you talk to the people in the house, oh no, something went down that night and we will never know the truth of what happened.
Nope.
But on paper, it's down as a suicide.
Yeah, there's lots of podcasts about it, so I highly recommend if you want to listen to something if you like puzzles or mysteries, that's definitely one to go.
But just know you're never going to get an answer for it.
But, oh no,
make your own mind up. Make your own mind up. But yeah, he was. There was a false story circulating around that he was hired to play Milton Arbogast and filmed a few of his scenes with the rest of the cast just a week before his death.
And he was the private detective, wasn't he?
Yeah, there is no truth in this.
No,
George did not.
I was going to say I don't recall seeing anything about that, but
no, the dates don't match up. But it was a long-standing rumor that he was part of this film, and then obviously his mysterious death takes place, and what's going on here? Because this movie it is from the instant it came out. Obviously, the way that he promoted it was a hit.
Yeah.
But to the studios, it was a risky thing. There's a really good biofilm with Anthony Hopkins of the making of Psycho. Some of it is a bit far-fetched, but you can get a feel of how he was around this film. There was rumors that he stole books from libraries and bookshops because he didn't want anybody to know the ending of this film.
Yes, I heard that. He bought the rights for like a pittance. It was like $900.
Nobody knew this book.
No, it was like next to nothing he bought the rights for this book for. So then what he did was he asked for a distribution list of where they were sent to, and he went round and got people to buy every copy in every one of these shops to try and avoid the spoiler of the ending, which I thought was A, ambitious, and B, kind of ingenious, I suppose, in one way.
It's crafty.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me though. But then, even then, it was changed quite a lot, but kept the majority of it.
I actually own the book. Never read
it. Did you? The budget for the film itself was. It was made on what they classed as a shoestring budget for a film in 1960, which was 807,000.
Oh, that isn't a lot.
But to me, it's a lot. But when you look at Paramount being involved and Universal being involved,
yeah,
that's a lot of money.
No, it's not.
It translates to 8.7 million today, which is still quite a small budget. So it would have been classed as an indie film.
Just going off figures that we've heard in the past. That does seem quite.
It's in the indie realm, because indie realms
Yeah.
are somewhere between, like, they're the low part of the millions, if they can even raise that, you know. But the box office, it was such a hit, they had no idea what to expect off the back of this like £807,000 investment. It made 50 million in the box office. By today's standards, that's 504 million. That's like opening 2 weeks of Avengers Endgame. You know, we're talking, it's up there. You know, it deserves its place in a list. You know, of
Yeah.
that's a hell of a, that's 504 million by today's standards is an insane amount of money to make.
Crazy, but it's understandable because he made such a mystery about it that he gave people no choice to go and actually see it. And it's something that you will never find today.
Well, he made
you will never.
Yeah, no, you're right. He made all of the guys on set sign NDAs as well, didn't he?
Yep,
He was like,
everyone.
You're not leaving here. You're not going to talk about
anyone.
You're not going to do anything.
Yeah, but it wasn't just people on set. It was anyone,
Actors,
anyone who, his secretary, his wife, like he had everyone sign them because he was so protective. He wanted to follow up to The Bird. No, The Birds hadn't come out yet. He wanted something that was different to what he was known for. And this was it. And the film does have some strong, not the film, but the book, because that's where the references come from, has strong connections to one particular man. One particular infamous serial killer. Could you class him as a serial killer?
I'd say so, because he's killed more than one person. However, what he
was for three, was it?
Was totally. It's inspired a lot of horror movies, as this fella.
Oh, he has. He really has. And you know what? Never really interested me.
I mean, see, the weird thing about, we're talking about the very, yeah. Now, I find him fascinating because of the psychology of how he lived after his mother's death, and how apparently her room was absolutely immaculate, and the rest of the house was like no electric, no running water. It was squalor. It was Hobbiton. Like, you know, we're talking after like somebody's gone through it with a steamroller. It was just, he lived in a hole basically. It was the most disgusting thing you've ever seen. And to add to that, obviously, body parts everywhere, stuff in pots, stuff in the oven, skin hanging up to tan.
Did he make the nipple belt?
Yes, he did.
Nice.
Yeah, I know so much. He even made the trousers. He made a pair of trousers.
What gets me, I mean, no, it doesn't get me at all. He actually killed 2 people. It was only 2 that he killed. So in the John Douglas world of, because John Douglas, if you don't know, is the guy who coined the term serial killer. And he based that
guy, isn't it?
Yeah, I like John. I feel like I've had some time with John because I've read Mindhunter. He is fucking fantastic at explaining cases, like the in-depth, and how he leads you into it, and how simple he makes it for you, because he has to remember that you are not part of the team. You don't know the terminology, so he breaks it down lovely. But fuck me, does that man like to give himself a pat on the back and a big massive round of applause for John, because John did it all. He totally forgets that he has a whole fucking team behind him who are helping, who are doing this. But he did coin the term serial killer, and the way that we look at serial killers is helped because of John's team and how they managed to use serial killers as a way to become to profile people. But I completely lost my point now. But yeah, Geen only killed 2. So in the John Douglas world, he isn't a serial killer. But what makes him more interesting, he was a grave robber. He
was a grave robber as well. Yeah, he used to rob fresh graves, so that's why he had so much skin and stuff like that. But the thing that Robert, I can't remember his surname, Bloch.
I want to say Bloch.
Yeah, the thing that he took from the whole of the Ed Gein thing was the relationship with his mother, because his mother was apparently one of the most overbearing, strong, very much looked like Mrs. Trunchbull. If you ever go and see pictures of her, she looked like Miss Trunchbull from Matilda. And she was like the matriarch. She was everything Mother said Ed had to do, even though his brother, he had an older brother, and his older brother was a little bit more. He was lenient. She was lenient with him, and he was allowed to do certain things because he became the man of the house, so he had freedom because the father died. So but Ed was always the baby, so the
yeah,
mum was always baby Ed, and Robert looked into the literally the relationship there, and rather than take like the Texas Chainsaw approach, which is take the blood, take the gore, take the skin, and we'll use that side of Ed Gein, he took the relationship with his mother. But the reason why this story rung so much with Alfred Hitchcock was because he had a very similar mother.
Yeah.
He had an overbearing mother who would tell him what he did wrong all the time and tell him how he looked was disgusting. And she was one of those mothers. So this is why
delightful.
this is why this story resonated with Hitchcock to a degree. I mean, it doesn't explain his behavior, but it contributes to the way he was as a human.
Yeah.
But the story itself rang true with him because he was like, well, I can identify to a degree with this story about this young man that has an overbearing mother, and he doesn't know how to live a normal life. He's quite happy with his existence of living at night and his routine and looking after Mother and looking after the motel. And Mother's wicked, but it's a means to an end to be able to have my own to run the motel, that whole thing. So
yeah, well, Eddie Gein has managed to inspire at least 3 films I can think of the top of my head. This one, Texas Chainsaw, and Silence of the Lambs. Because skin furniture. Let's make it a thing. Oh my god, it honestly makes my bones cold ugh. Skin furniture, nipple belts. No. Should we go through the film?
Yeah, I mean, we're at the point where she's having that little tete-a-tete in a bra in 1960 with her boyfriend. She gets dressed. She's discussing like how she wants to be with him and marry him. And he's like, well, I've got an ex-wife, I've got to pay her alimony. I just owe all this money, and I don't think I'm ever going to be able to get out of the situation I'm in because I've somehow got myself in too deep, and you don't marry like me kind of thing.
I just need money.
Yeah.
That's all that Marion hears in that moment. We need money.
So she then gets dressed and realizes she's late for work for a lunch break. So off she trots. Boop, boop.
Ooh,
And
bit of bump and grind on a lunch break. I'd rather eat my tea.
I'd
rather eat my dinner.
How long are their lunch breaks?
Also, well, just before I forget to say this, because I will, the boyfriend, Sam Loomis, recognize the name?
Yeah.
There you go.
Loomis. He's left in the room, and she said to him, don't miss your plane, you've got to go back to wherever the hell it is you come from. And she's like, I don't ever want to do this again. And he's like, you're a liar, of course you do. He's very cocksure, but at the same time he was quite vulnerable in the fact that I think he was genuine in the fact that he loved her, and he was ashamed because he didn't have money to look after her. So that's why he kept saying, this is, I know you don't want to do this, you're too good, all this sort of shit. So her and her ego poop out the door, tiddaloo, off she goes. And then she walks into her office, from what I remember, like her place of work, and she starts talking to the other secretary in the room. The other secretary, do you know who she was? She's Alfred Hitchcock's daughter.
Yeah.
And you can see it. The minute they said that was his daughter, I was like, oh my God, that poor woman looks exactly like him. I didn't notice at first, but then I was like,
chatty little thing that she is. This just before is it when no, Marion's already stolen money. No, it's not. It's just before. There. It's just before. So Alfred Hitchcock liked to do a cameo in every movie. And the reason he chose the moment he did is because he knew people would be looking for it. Yeah. But that's not where he wanted their concentration to be. So he was like, let's just get out the way with right at the beginning, and we can concentrate on the story and just watch how much of it.
Cowboy or something, isn't he?
He just walks across the street and looks directly at the camera and just walks along like that's it. But that's what he used to do. He would like literally walk, look, go. But yeah, then we get to find out how much of a horrible person Marion Crane actually is.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. She was inquiring if there was anything that, anybody wrong for her, and Chatty Cathy was like, no, no, just my husband, my mother, his mother, checking that my husband had rang and all this sort of stuff. And you're like, okay, we've established the dynamics in this. Then her boss comes in with an investor that's about to buy a house. So I presume it's an estate agent because you never really find out what the job is so much. But
No, you don't know what a job is.
Either some sort of solicitors or like an escrow place or something like that.
I just thought when I first watched it, it's office work for office people.
Yeah. Until he whops out that great big amount of cash and goes, oh, I never carry any more than I can afford to lose. And you're like, ugh.
Oh, well, bitch, you said the wrong thing there.
Yeah, it really did. And I was like, just everything about him, like the stuff he was saying. And he's like, my daughter's getting married. Look at this picture of my daughter. She's 18. She's fantastic, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, let's, hit her up, hit her up. And I'm like, oh, just no.
Just stop. Hand
Wedding
me
ring.
over.
Yeah, wedding ring, just blaringly obvious. And it's like,
the way he's going on is to distract you from the fact that that money is going to be stolen, and look at who she stole it from. It's okay, he's a dick.
Yeah,
but it's a dick move on Marion's part.
Yeah, so she makes an excuse. She said, "Oh, she's not feeling too well," and her boss goes, "Right, well, I'm not happy about taking this cash because it's not normal. What I'll do is I'll bank it, but I'll put it in the safety deposit box, and then if you change your mind over the weekend and you decide to pay a different way, we'll go get it out of the security deposit box." So he's like, "Yeah, that's cool. I won't," but So her boss says to her, "Right, you go and bank that. You go do what you need to do with it." And she's like, "Well, can I go home? I've got a headache afterwards." He's like, "Of course, you're wonderful. You're the best trusted employee I've ever had." And so off she toodles. Does she go to the bank?
Does she fuck? Does she fuck?
She goes
so
home.
This is one of my favorite scenes of the movie, just because of how it's played out. So you're in the car with Marion, and it's just Marion, steering wheel, driving along, and all you can hear in the background is the conversations that she thinks is going on right now, because it's not confirmed that it's actually happening or if it's in Marion's head. I've always been under that it's Marion who's thinking it.
Yeah, it's all the stuff that I've seen have said that it's like her internal monologue.
Yeah.
Imagination of what's playing out while she's not there. But what I did like, something that Hitchcock did intentionally in this part, was because when the opening scene, you see Janet, she's all very virginal. She's got a white shirt, she's got white underwear on, white slip, white bra, and white handbag. And then when she makes the choice to take the money, to run away to see Sam to give him the money, she is in a black bra, she's in a black slip, she has a black dress, like top thing, and she has a black handbag. And he said he wanted to show the difference between the good and evil sides of Marion. And I'm like, well, that works, but I didn't get it. I just thought she'd just changed because she was driving.
Yeah, no, I didn't get it either. But oh my God, how beautiful does she look when you can see a puzzled face as she's driving along, and you can hear everything I love that scene so much. So once Marion's in the car, she ends up falling asleep.
This bit I find so bizarre that they wrote her like this. Like the next couple of scenes,
because they're trying to play on your sympathy because of what's about to happen.
But it felt more, she purposely made herself look incredibly suspicious. Like if you have 40 grand, which translates to around about probably a couple of 100,000 in your newspaper in your handbag, and you're getting pulled over by the police. Well, you're not pulled over by the police, you're woken up by the police because you've fallen asleep in your car.
Yeah. And
she starts acting really strange. "Goodbye, officer, I have to go, it's an emergency." Well, it wasn't that much of an emergency because you were asleep, love. So
they sort shit out.
Strange.
But yeah, so she ends up finding a motel.
Well, she swaps a car first, doesn't she? And it acts really weird when she swaps a car.
Does she?
Yeah, she goes to the car. She goes to the car showroom because she thinks the policeman's following her.
That's right.
And he turns off. So when she's driving up in her first car, he turns off and she relaxes. And so she drives to this car showroom, Cheeky Charlie's or whatever his name is. And she pulls up and she's like, right, okay, if I want to sell you my car, but I want to change it for, I want to swap it for another car.
But the plates are the same, though, aren't they?
It's so weird. There's a lot of weird things that happen here that I can't
Well,
keep track of.
isn't her car pulled at the end? That's how they knew she was there.
Yes.
But it's not her car, so how would they know that?
But this is the thing. I think it was all traced through that police officer that was watching her, because he was
Right.
across the road watching her the whole time she chose the new car. And like Cheeky Charlie said to her, oh well, if you want to swap it for this car, it's going to cost you $700 on top of your exchange on your car that you've
Right.
given
Got
me.
you.
And she was like, yep, no problem. And he was like, she paid me cash, $700 cash, which is the equivalent, I think they said, of like having like £8,000 in your car. Like she just literally had it in cash and she handed it over. And then she was so desperate to get away from the policeman, she almost forgot her suitcase and her coat, because the mechanic had to run it out and throw it in there for her, while she's almost two-wheeling it out of the bloody showroom. And the policeman's just standing there with these very small sunglasses on that didn't fit his face.
He
Really
had a big
bugged me.
head. He had a really,
Yeah.
really big head.
And then just watches her drive out. And I'm like, well, if you're that suspicious about her, why didn't you stop her? Why are you just watching? It's
he's
very strange.
he's very much. Do you know who he reminds us of? The detective in The Exorcist. Don't know
Oh,
why.
yes, yeah.
It just gives me them. Yeah, it just gives me them kind of vibes. But yeah, Marion does end up stopping
Yeah.
at
She
the Bates
gets the
Motel.
rain starts coming down after she's had the internal monologue for so long. She's getting tired, purely because Alfred kept shining lights in her eyes. But she doesn't realize she's come off the freeway and she's gone on the back road. But she realized enough to pull over to go to the motel itself.
That says, does it say no vacancies to start with? And then
I think the nose flashing, isn't it?
no, yeah. Oh, I love that. And it's yeah, and she's greeted by Norman.
Oh, mother.
Mother, what is it? Blood. No, God. I love that line. Mother, please.
The difference between the way they wrote Norman in the movie compared to the way Norman's written in the books is, Norman in the book is your typical serial killer, son of Sam vibe. They wrote him to look
What,
like,
like Berkowitz?
yeah, they wrote him to look like Berkowitz, David Berkowitz, because he was
Fucking hate
supposed to
that
have
man.
like a little bit of hair, bald on top, be overweight, be very unsociable, kind of like awkward.
Yeah, he was me. How he is how he looks.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
that's not what he wanted to do here. It has to be unexpected.
the thing is, Berkowitz was obviously in the 70s, but that's the vibe that when people explained how they wanted him to look, that is exactly how the book
Berkowitz.
wrote him, is how he looked, how you describe Berkowitz, basically, the son of
I
Sam.
hate that man.
Yeah, he's a strange one, isn't he?
Oh, you telling me he committed all them? You can fuck right off.
You're telling me a dog can talk? Yeah, it's another level of what the fuck. But it's a whole thing where he was supposed to look creepy in the book. He was supposed to give off all that vibes, but Hitchcock completely went against that and wanted someone who had charisma and seemed incredibly innocent to the world, but could still have a conversation with a woman without getting like really embarrassed and running away, you know.
And he articulated his words, and he was interested in things. Like, he had a really good taxidermy collection.
I like birds. Yeah. Never do dogs or cats, though, is what he says. And he's having that whole conversation after he said to her, because she's been there and she's obviously knackered, she's done all the driving, and he's shown her to a room.
He made her a sandwich.
And then, yeah, he basically says, do you want to come up to the house for a sandwich? And she was like, oh, it's late, I'll go to sleep. And he's like, don't worry, I'll go up and I'll make you one and I'll bring it back down. And then she goes to invite him in the room, but then something stops him from going in there. And I think it's like the shred of innocence that's left in Norman, like that whole, oh, I don't think I'd like to be in a bedroom alone with a woman.
No.
Mother think.
Well, Marion hears mother and Norman arguing at this point. And she's like, who's that? And he's like, who's what? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, the way she talks to you. And she was the kind of voice that, she was an incredibly outspoken woman, I suppose, in the respect of that she wasn't just keeping her head down and just going to bed and pretending she didn't hear it. She actually voiced her opinion on the situation.
And really wasn't her place to do so.
No. And so Mrs.
And
Bates wasn't too happy about that.
no, she wasn't. She was not happy at all. The taxidermy room though itself, when he's sitting there and in the birds, oh, it's brilliant. I was at the Hancock on Friday, and there's a whole big nature section, and whoever did the taxidermy for that, oh my god, unreal! Like it's amazing. I've never seen taxidermy look so fucking cute, just adorable. But essentially, we were walking around, and my godson had just fallen asleep, and I turned to my best friend, and I was like, you know what? We're essentially just walking around in a room full of dead animals right now. And she's like, right, it's time to go. You lowered the tone. I was like, that's what I do. I did want to. When we went, they had a room. It's like little roomy bit made out, and it had like lights and everything. And it had the voice of the underworld. And it was all like it was in the Egyptian section, and it was like, what would it feel like to be entering into the underworld? And I was like, oh fuck yeah, this is a bit of me. This walks in, shitload of kids there making so much noise. I just turned around and went, I thought it would be quiet in the afterlife. F this, I'm out. And all the mothers just looked at us. I was like, you can look at us all you want. I wanted to come to the afterlife. I didn't want to hear you squawking kids going on.
Correct.
Anyways, ranting over.
But yeah, he's talking to her, and she's being incredibly outspoken for
someone who doesn't please people.
But for Norman's likings to a degree, because he starts going off on quite a dark little tangent, doesn't he? Like,
well, that, and she also says, maybe you should put your mother in an institute. Maybe you should fuck off, Marion.
Yeah, like, who are you to tell me? And he's like, no, those places are horrible. And he starts going to his mum's defense. So you're, at this point, you're none the wiser. You're like, clearly she's a very pressing person. She's a very overbearing mother. She's a very demanding person. So you don't question it. You're like, okay. And then he starts going off on one about like the dangers and the dark and all this sort of stuff. And then that's where he said like, oh, she wouldn't like it because she's gone a little bit mad. And then that's where he comes out with the line, we all go a little bit mad sometimes, or however it is.
That's how it says.
And then he looks at her and he goes, it's either he says, wouldn't you, or don't you, or something along those lines. And I
can see him looking up and saying it, because he does it with his like eyes down, because he doesn't really give it much eye contact. But whatever Norman says to her resonates, because Marion comes to, because Marion opens up a little bit and she's like, I've done something I shouldn't have, and the conversation makes her go, I'm gonna go and do the right thing. I'm gonna go back to Phoenix tomorrow, and I'm gonna sort this shit out.
So she goes to her room, and this is where she sits down. She starts to get changed, and this dirty little man takes a picture off the wall, and now you're starting to get a point of view of who Norman possibly could be.
But it's still not to the level of where you think it's gonna go. You're just like, oh, you fucking creep.
You dirty little voyeur. Yeah. Holes in the wall. But so he watches her get unchanged, basically, and then he hangs his picture up. But you see Marion sitting there, and she's doing all of her equations, working out what she owes from the money she's taken already, and how much is left. And she's counted all the money, and she's hidden it in the newspaper. You see her ripping it up, and then you see her throw it in the toilet and flush the toilet. Now, as we all know, a flushing toilet is nothing big. It's nothing new. It's a toilet. It flushes. Everybody knows this. But it was the first time a flushing toilet was ever shown on movies, TV screens of any kind, because apparently it was something to do with it being improper or impolite.
Probably just a censorship thing. Bearing in mind how like the next bit is some of the most brilliant filmmaking that has ever been done. But he was very clever around getting around censorship. The censorship act that they are following literally disbands a couple of years after this film was done. Because it was so strict. And Dan's right, you never seen a toilet. You could possibly see a toilet at a distance, but you would never see in the bowl.
No, it was the water in the bowl. The big thing, wasn't it? And that was quite a shock for everybody, because they were like, oh, how disgusting. And all she was doing was flushing some paper down the toilet that she'd ripped up with all the sums on. And so you're like, okay. being from the generation we are, it was nothing scandalous, but at the time it must have been like everybody must have been clutching their pearls. Oh my God, there's the toilet. How dare they show
How
it?
could you?
And then this is where she proceeds to get undressed and gets in the shower. Now I need to have words with Marion about the way she showers. I would never get in the shower and then turn it on. You turn it on first, let the water warm up, and then get in. But no, Marion decides to get in to a shower to turn it on.
I have cold showers, so it doesn't really matter to me which way I'm putting the shower on. Like it's always going to be the same temperature.
I have
Cold.
to have blistering hot showers to cool down. So it's like I can't.
I'll never understand that. I literally have a cold shower because of my internal body heat at the minute.
But there's this bit. There's a scene that you see, and it's only a couple of frames, but it's the camera looking up into the shower head, and you see all the water cascading down past your point of view. You're supposed to be Marion's eyes at this point.
Yeah.
She's looking up at the shower head. Now, legend has it, now I don't know how true this is because I kept trying to look in for it a bit more and I wasn't sure, I couldn't really find much. They built a 6-foot shower head prop to put the camera in that blank space in the middle of the shower, and they poured the water down either side of the camera to get that shot. So the camera would get wet.
That.
I know. I saw it on one of these many places that you find this stuff, and I couldn't find it anywhere else. And I was like, I don't know how true this is, and I can't verify it. I can't back it up. But
I used to know this scene inside out, back to front, and how he shot it, and parts of my memory will start flooding back as we're talking about it. But I have never. If I had known that, that would have been the first thing that came out of my mouth is about a 6-foot bloody shower head.
Yeah, it was something that I read because they wanted to do it from we had to be Marion's eyes, and the only way that we could be Marion's eyes if we were standing under the shower, and the only way we could stand under the shower was with the camera, but they didn't want to get the camera wet, and so that's what they build this whole thing out of, apparently.
Well, not to burst your bubbles, fellas, but when you're looking at Marion Crane's body, that ain't Janet Leigh. That was Janet Leigh had her own very naked stunt double, who was, I can't get her name. It will take me forever to look through the notes that I have wrote, but she was a Playboy bunny, also a nudist who loved to flaunt her bits and pieces around everywhere. She was so comfortable in her skin. But her and Janet got on like a fucking house on fire. She didn't take any shit from Hitchy as well. But yeah, I read a lot about her. She seemed like an absolute blast. She is the only living person. Yeah, I think she is still the only living person from this film. But yeah, that is not Janet Leigh. There's bits and pieces that are Janet Leigh because you can't the face. Yeah. You can't, but anything else was this lady. I'm sorry, I can't find it. Honestly, it is in here somewhere, but I use a laptop now, people, not a notepad, and I don't organize myself, just like I never organize myself with me written notes. But the scene, right? So, showers happening, water's running, and you basically get not a full 360 of the shower, but you get like a scan of it so you can see everything that's around. And as Marion turns her back, we are looking at the shower
curtain.
That's it. Shower curtain. And we see a figure appear.
Her name was Marley Renfro.
That what you're Googling?
Yeah.
It's just
it's going to bug me otherwise. I know I've got it in my notes as well, but where it is. So yeah, Marley Renfro, and she was a American former showgirl, model, Playboy cover girl, and actress.
She sounded like a blast.
Yeah,
absolute blast. Especially some of the things I was reading. It was just the whole attitude to life. Like I loved it. But yeah, we see the figure, and we see the knife, and then that beautiful. Oh my God, what's the composer called?
I've got it here.
Bernard.
He didn't want the music there at all. Where is it?
Bernard
I've got it here somewhere. Where is it? Bloody hell.
It's fucking Bernard.
It is Bernard something, starts with a H. See?
Oh.
Notes. Bernard Herrmann.
Oh my God, that was so annoying because the minute you said it, my eyes went straight to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, he didn't want the music to be used in it, but because
No.
of the effect of the which by the way is the inspiration for the music in Jaws. Just want to put that out there.
And also was completely blatantly ripped off for Reanimator, which is another one of our episodes if you want to go back and listen to that.
Yeah, the
Blatantly ripped off.
The very amazing music that's played throughout this film is very much used heavily in Reanimator. However, I wasn't mad at it if I can remember
No.
rightly. I thought it was one, stroke genius, two, incredibly fucking catchy.
Because the reason why he liked Herrmann was because Herrmann had written the scores for Vertigo and for North by Northwest.
Yeah.
He had him on board to do The Birds, which was after this one, but obviously all he was in charge of was the noise of birds squawking in the end. But for this, he paid him $33,500.
$34,501.
See, that wasn't bad. I didn't have that written down. I was just trying to remember what I read. But yeah, he paid him a lot of money because he felt that the score was the thing that captured the essence of the scene. He
Without
was
it
dead
doesn't work.
against it. Yeah, he was dead against that score when he heard it. But then when he saw it in the editing suite, when it was put to the scene, he said it was like the whole scene changed. It just changed it.
He said 33% of the effective cycle was due to the music. Ironically, he didn't want, I'm reading from my notes here, he didn't want the music in the shower scene, but he was persuaded by who? His lovely wife, Alma. And it works, that screeching violin, that really brings some tension to what is already an incredibly tense scene.
And a very risque scene. I mean,
yeah, you saw skin. Oh
you saw torso. You saw under. You didn't see under boob, but you saw under the breast and before the pelvic bone. So you saw the crop top section, your midriff, right? Which was something you never saw bare on telly either.
No.
He managed to get shoulder to down past the shoulder, so no cleavage, no top of the breast. So the boobs got completely cut out. So there was none of that. And nothing from the waist to the upper thighs either. So you see her buttocks, I think, when she's finally
when she turns around,
she's done that thing where she's wiggled down the wall and she's on practically on her knees in the bath, isn't she?
And then she slumps forward because there's a moment where the camera is panning on her eye, and there was something that they did with the like a freeze frame, because she kept that's right, there's a free when you look at Marion and she's dead looking at the camera, it's frozen and you can see because there's a drop just about here on her eye and it stays there because she kept blinking and he couldn't have it the blinking, and then he gets the toilet and the blood, which as we've mentioned before is
chocolate syrup
because the consistency of it, when he used other stuff, one, it didn't reflect in black and white,
didn't it?
Yeah, the consistency would just water down, so you're not seeing it. There's no it actually what blood would do if it hit water, but he needed you to see the effect of it, and chocolate syrup was the one thing of consistency. When it hit the water, it didn't just disintegrate, it lingered. You saw it swirling. I'm trying to think of the other random stupid facts that I know in my head about this scene.
You see the knife, don't you, with the on the stomach as well, like
for us it's meant to be going in because you hear the squishing of the watermelons that they used. There's the sound of the knife going in, but realistically it's just scraping across our stomach,
right?
But doesn't really, you don't see it penetrate skin. It just goes across, and you see that beautiful stomach line like round like the side of it.
And then you have the iconic bit where she grabs the shower curtain and she goes down with it. ends up, oh yeah, the hand, which, by the way, she had some beautiful nails on her.
Yeah.
And she falls forward over the edge of the bath, because we all know, if you've ever visited America, their baths are tiny.
Yep.
They
Never
are
had a bath in America.
they are the smallest things. They are literally our shower trays with a slightly bigger raised edge. I mean,
Mm,
it's not really a bath, but
no,
she dies slumped over it.
she does. And the figure is now left. Now the figure looked like they were wearing a dress with like long hair that was, I think, tied back.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to think of the wig. Yeah, tied back, and the figure leaves. There's a lot of command in the figure.
Yeah,
There's a lot of confidence. The way
very
that they,
well,
yeah, walking in and out, very straight, and then Bumble and Norma. My God, mother, blood. Love that line. Comes in fumbling and like, oh God, what the fuck has just happened? Like, he doesn't swear, but I bet he wish he did. And he does what any dutiful son does.
tidies up after his mother. What a mess you've made, mother! What a mess!
Damn it. And he cleans up and he dumps Marion in the back of a boot and takes her to the bog. Because everyone has a bog conveniently out the back of their motel. And then we get the detective side of the movie. I'm gonna briefly, yeah, because I get what you mean. I totally understand. Lila is not a likable character, just like saying that Marion is a shitbag, but she was likable.
Yeah.
Lila Crane,
her sister, not so much.
no, she's not. She's not particularly likable. So
The
Sam
only-
and Lila.
Sorry, I was gonna say, the only issue I have with the private investigator part is the way he has his demise. It is
No
filmed.
one on audio is going to be able to see that I was literally wheeling my hands around.
It is such a strange way to show someone falling down the stairs without actually falling down.
It's a Hitchcock way of falling down the stairs.
It's like, I'm just going to bend backwards, and then you're going to film me bending backwards, waving my arms around, and then we're going to pretend you're falling down the stairs. For some reason, I've never noticed that before. And last night was the first time I'd really paid attention to that bit, and I was like, what is he doing?
He's flailing down the stairs. Ooh. He's preparing for hauntings. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about all the stuff, because what happens is basically Marion's sister is away when Marion decides to run away. So Marion's sister comes back to the boss going, your sister's running money. What the hell's going on? So she goes, right, I know where she's gone. She's gone to see Sam, so I'll go see Sam. So she turns up to see Sam. Sam's got no idea what the bleeding hell's going on. The private investigator comes in, and then they like, all right, we're going to have to trace our steps, find out where she's gone, blah, 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 blah. Somehow you see a montage of the private investigator going to every hotel and motel in the whole of the tri-state area.
Don't need to see that. Don't need to see it.
It was a choice.
It was a massive choice. But they do trace their steps back to Norman. And Norman fills them with an absolute load of shit about the Marion.
You can smell it, because he's not a very good liar.
No, Norman as Norman is incredibly anxious. It shows. I mean, I'm taking Norman from this movie, not the TV show, because I have watched a bit of the TV show and I didn't mind that portrayal of Norman. I quite liked it.
I genuinely think Charlie and the Chocolate Factory did really, really well with the country.
He did. So Sam he goes back to Sam and Lila, and the poke holes in the story. And they know Mother is there because Norman makes reference to it, but what they end up finding out is that Mother actually died from a murder-suicide syringe. Did you call it murder-suicide? Well, yeah, murder-suicide. Yeah, Norman gave the syringe, so there's the murder side. The suicide is the fact that she wanted to die, no? And poisoned her.
See, this is the bit where it all gets muddy for me, because there's this bit, but then there's the other bit at the end, which I always remember more. The explanation at the end for it, which was she met a guy and Norman didn't like the fact that she met someone and wanted to move on, so he killed them both. That's the psychologist's assumption
Do you
of,
think that's them trying to make sense of it?
yeah, because that's what the psychologist said that mother said happened, or was, I'm pretty sure. But then,
Oh, right. I got you. Got
yeah.
you.
So, and that psychologist scene at the end with all the
Yeah.
exposition. So I always feel like that must have been what happened. But if that's the mother's side of it, it doesn't necessarily mean that was what happened. That
No.
was, so I'm not 100% sure, but that's where my brain always thinks. It's like mother met someone, and
I just thought she died.
yeah,
Honestly, I just thought she died. He couldn't cope with it, and was his way of coping was
yeah.
to, do what he did.
He left a room like unchanged, didn't he? She was still laying in her bed, mummified, until that last minute where he picks her up and he carries her, runs her down the stairs and hides her in the basement,
Yeah.
which was a choice.
The massive choice, because when they start to dig deeper, they end up at the Bates Motel, and Lila ends up finding Mother in the basement,
Yep.
and does that amazing not her scream.
Yes.
Yes, that is Janet Leigh screaming, because Vera couldn't pull her pipes together, and Janet Leigh has a better scream, so they used it. So yeah, Lila finds the mother. And this is probably the most interesting part of the movie, is them. Yeah, well, this is trying to explain Norman.
Yeah, I mean, you see Sam tackling the knife out of Norman's hand, and you see the wig fall off and the dress starting to come off, and you're like,
He does that thing with his face. It's like a transformation thing. It's like,
it's a crazy kind of like,
it's like he's trying to not be her, and
yeah,
because his face like pulls up to one side. It's so, I don't want to use the word disturbing, but it's like, it's not.
it's kind of manic, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah, that's the word,
oh,
manic. It's so strange how he comes, because when you saw him killing Marion, spoilers, he killed Marion. When you see Norman killing Marion, he's confident. You can see it in the way the stance, and the way the knife goes in, and da da da. But when he comes fooling out of the shadows with knife in hand, it falls apart.
yeah,
And it's almost like Norman's fighting his way out.
yeah, because when everything starts falling off, like the wig, he just becomes weaker and weaker, and Sam's able to tackle him to the floor. And then it just hard cuts to the psychologists, all the people sitting in the room, and the psychologist coming in, if I'm right. There's no transition.
No, there's no transition. It's just straight from Sam tackling him straight into the decisions. And yeah, they do explain that Norman killed his mother, and I love it, 10 years earlier out of jealousy, unable to bear the guilt of what he's done. He then mummifies his mother and plays her out as him.
Because the psychologist comes in and they said, "Did you talk to him?" And he's like, "No, but I talked to the mother." So basically, Norman had done the whole interview as mother.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing, his psyche had fractured, according to the psychologist, into two pieces. It had Norman and it had Norma. And Norma was so dominant that she overtook Norman at this point when his mother was actually found. She became the dominant of the two. Now, some people would say that could be schizophrenia, some people would say otherwise, but I don't think it's schizophrenia, because it is a known person. It is his mother. So,
but I don't think you can call it multiple personality disorder, because there's only one other person in there. I don't really know what.
It's a fractured psyche. Like he's literally split himself into two.
And when he's attracted to women, Mother comes out, because Mother would be like, "Oh, fuck
she's not good enough for you."
No, absolutely not. And that's but when he needs to be confident, and that's when Mother again will come out. It's crazy that you don't get to see any of that,
which annoyed me, because I don't think this scene was the studio's contribution, because the studio wanted to clear up why you see Norman in a dress. because obviously, again, transvesticism at that point wasn't something we see for whatever sake. But the doctor does clear it up, because one of the other policemen or doctors says, oh, he's a transvestite. And he's like, no, it's not for sexual gratification. Although I'm not sure now so much that is the whole reason behind transvesticism. But 1960, you have to go with what you got. But he's very respectful. That I will say, I think they handled this section very well for the time.
The very tastefully done.
Yeah, the language used, considering this was an unknown territory in talking about it in a public arena. It was like, he's like, no, he just genuinely believes he's his mother. It's got absolutely nothing to do with any kind of physical reaction of wanting to be a female. It's got nothing to do
to even be his mother.
Yeah, it is the fact that his mother is in his head and she is the dominant personality, and she is the one who's taken control. And we've lost Norman now. Norman's gone. This is what we have.
Don't worry, people. He does come back. He does come back.
But it's Lila just sitting there going, "But is she dead? Is she dead?"
Oh,
and he goes,
"Fuck off, Lila."
But he goes, "Yeah, she's dead." And then she's going, "But is she dead again?" I'm like, "Did you not fucking hear him the first time?" No reaction though. Absolutely nothing. Didn't cry. Her face didn't even move.
What makes me think is that Vera Mills was doing the bare minimum to get past on this film, just to get the fucker over with.
Which, if you thought it was going to be a flop, which the majority of people did think it was going to be a flop at this point, wouldn't you go home gutted knowing that you could have given 110% to one of the most iconic movies ever written, or like pieces of cinema ever to be had, and you're just sitting there going, "But is she dead?"
Yeah, Vera. I'm not going to speak ill of you because you are dead. Then you get the most, I want to say it's iconic. It's not just so much as the shower scene will always be like the most iconic, but this is quite like up there where you get the conversation between the two.
Yeah, this is where you get all the iconic stills of actual Perkins on his own, like Norman Bates.
"And she'll never hurt anyone, not even a fly." I love that line. I love that line. I love the fact that the mother is like the one who's talking, and then it's all of a sudden Norman starts smiling and the face comes over the top of his, and it's like, oh God, who's who?
Yeah. And that's the thing. You've got the doctor say that he was talking specifically to Norma, but then when you hear, I'm still not sure who the voiceover was for that, whether it was Anthony doing a very very high-pitched voice, or it was an actual another woman that did it.
Jeanette Nolan was uncredited as the appearance of the voice of Norma Mother Bates. The three voices we used Virginia Gregg, Paul Jasmine, and Jeanette Nolan were three variations of Mother.
You got Screamy Mother, didn't you?
Yeah, the final scene was performed entirely by Virginia Gregg. Right. But he did do some things to Norman's voice as well, especially with the mother, blood, God, no. He took the bass out of his voice to make it sound quite angelic.
He was an incredibly accomplished actor, and people don't really realize that. And I go between calling him Anthony and Anthony because obviously, depending on where you're from, that's how you say it.
But given that it's my husband's name, I would call him Anthony.
He's an incredibly accomplished actor, and in 1992, when he did pass away, he was worth nearly $3 million at that point, which by today's standards is in the 10s, 15s million. You know, he had a bit of a legacy.
He did.
So, very little he did get cast for, and whenever at the point of when you could interview him and Janet, and they were always asked, "Are you scared of being typecast? Do you feel like you've been typecast?" Both of them, like especially Janet, she was like, "No, I don't care. That this movie has set me up for life. I don't have to ever worry again." And Anthony would say the same thing. He was like, "If you told me that I would only play Norman Bates for the rest of my career as an actor, I still would have taken the job."
Yeah. So, and this movie transition. So this is the movie that made her the last movie that she's ever in is Halloween H2O,
Mhm.
and Marion Crane is very much prevalent in the movie. The car that she drives is Marion's car.
The
The
outfit.
name, Mrs. Crane.
Yep.
Yeah, the outfit that she wears, it's a beautiful. I don't know if it's done on purpose because it was Janet's final, and it was with Jamie as well. So how effing special is that? But yeah, they weren't worried about being typecast. Tony Curtis did say about the shower scene that it led his biography, that it led his wife to drink, which ultimately led to divorce, which ultimately led to her downward spiral. On Janet's side, I can't find anything about that, so I don't really want to say that is true or not. That is just the words of Tony Curtis's biography.
Apparently, she had vasculitis and she didn't tell anybody. She'd been suffering with it for a very, very long time. And so in 2004, when she finally passed away, it was a shock to everybody because they didn't know she was as ill as she was.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of what Tony said was true because he seemed like he was a very good.
It sounded bitter.
Well, you know, in those circles where they're in a lot of the social situations in the it crowds, in those constant parties that they're always having. Tony had a reputation of being a good storyteller. He was the guy that held court. He would tell these big lively stories and everybody would laugh. So I feel like there's an element probably of theatrics in there. Maybe she popped a couple of pills once because she was pissed off. I'm not saying she was OD and she probably had a headache. And he was like, right, it's a suicide attempt. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's the drama.
Yeah,
the drama.
Oh,
drama, dear. Oh my gosh, have we got any more on Psycho?
No, really, except for it's a very difficult subject for me with Hitchcock because we have a legacy of amazing cinema that has paved the way for so many movies that we know and love today. And he himself, but as a director, he's a genius. As a person, he was a human piece of shit. And I go back to what I said earlier. If any of you want to know what he was like when he did The Birds, which was 3 years later with Tippi Hedren, and you'll see his Tippi Hedren's version of events. It is, I think it's just called Hitchcock, the film. Not to be confused with the
other one,
with the Will Smith one. But
the Anthony Hopkins one's called Hitchcock too. Oh no, it's called Hitch. No, whatever.
Yeah.
Hitchcock.
Not the flying Will Smith and Charlize Theron one. It's the one with Toby Jones and Naomi Watts in, and it is an eye.
I haven't actually seen it, and for no other reason than I didn't know about it until you mentioned it.
Yeah,
I've seen the other one, but the other one's very Hollywood.
Yeah, this one is more from her point of view. You see it from her point of view because it came from her memoir, her book.
The one with Anthony Hopkins is very much it's Hollywood doing what Hollywood does best. Wants to tell you half a story, but wants to fucking sugarcoat it at the same time. Whereas if you're brave enough, you can really hand Hollywood its arse.
Yeah.
They did it with Judy Garland and Renée Zellweger. That film is amazing.
I've seen it once and I was shocked at how
it's unreal. She is unreal in that film. But again, they sugarcoated, they downplayed everything that woman went through. And they had an opportunity to go, you know what, Hollywood, fuck you. And really hand it to them and really show people. Because people who are not like myself and Dan, who will go and read the back end of everything to go and find out all these crazy things. They don't know this story. They just see the young lass from The Wizard of Oz, and oh look, she turned into an alcoholic. Oh, how sad. Fucking find out the reason why. I'm going into a massive rant. I'm really sorry.
You're sorry.
It really fucks us off.
This is why, if you really want to see the viewpoint of one of his ingenues, one of his actresses, one of his
I love that word.
And I will say that Tippi Hedren was one of the most stunning women in, like, apart Janet is stunning
is
Tippi is just you see it from her point of view. I mean, obviously they would have sugarcoated some of it, I imagine. But if you want to see a more warts and all version of how disgusting Hitchcock can be, I
Yeah.
would definitely recommend you watch that film.
You want to see a woman age gracefully. Just go and
Yeah.
fucking look at her. Just go and look at her. She's beautiful. Beautiful. So next week,
Yes.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Another one where I'm like, how have we not done this before? Oh, we are going into the bizarre, into the unusual, into the freaks.
This movie is Todd Browning's Freaks, and it is the inspiration for American Horror Stories Freak Show episode. It's pretty much Freak Show played out. It's very
Is,
similar. It's very, very similar.
but it has stories upon the people, the cast. I have done some deep dives on this in the past. Like you start with one person and you are going down a list of like, oh my Jesus, oh okay. I can't fucking wait. I can't believe we're doing freaks. Mike Keller's gonna lose his shit.
But anybody that knows me prior to this, I used to be heavily involved in freak shows, like supporting freak show artists. I used to go down to they used to do Wonderland. I used to sponsor Sword Swallowers. I still do sponsor the Circus of Horrors. Bleeding
What?
does. So, I have a special place in my heart for people that, if you've even seen an episode of one of David Blaine's, that you've got Brett, Loudermilk, and the great El Lurchio, and they were trying to teach David Blaine how to regurgitate, and in that, El Lurchio is wearing a Bleeding Marvelous t-shirt.
What?
Yeah, this is going back years and years, but I like, there was a whole band of guys that dedicated their life to geeking, sword swallowing, eating glass. There's still Bloody Bones is still one of the ones that I know that does a lot of geeking. He eats a lot of glass and stuff like that, which don't do it at home, kids. If you know
No, I
what
mean,
you're doing.
I threaten it now and again when it comes to certain scenarios where I'm like, I'd rather eat glass
But
than do
yeah,
this.
I have such a level of respect to the circus world and to the genuine people. I've always had a fascination with like real freak shows. So like your half women, your bearded ladies, and for me, it's I don't know. There's just something about it, just something about the time, something about how it was like not frowned upon, but these people were the outcasts of society, yet they could make a fortune off the back of the way they looked, even though it was horrible responses. People were still paying to see them. So
Yeah,
many times.
they were making money from it. I've just had a story come flooding back to us, the conjoining twins. Oh
Yeah.
my God, there are so many things that we can talk about, not just the movie, but the whole entirety of it. This is when you go and watch horror lists of your top tens, your top, do you know what I mean? Your lists of what's the best horror movie of all time. I guarantee you, Freaks is in there.
Todd Browning was a genius. Todd
He
Browning
was.
was also responsible for Dracula
It's
and
true.
many other movies. Todd Browning brought a lot of things that we wouldn't have had to the screen, and this film is probably one of the most disability friendly, as in everybody that had the disability that was shown were genuinely
Genuine.
people that had the disability. There's no people playing dwarves.
No, God, no.
There's
no.
no that aren't that are for, able-bodied, or there's something about the fact that he chose to cast correctly, that it was so respectful as well to the people,
Yeah.
to the actors and actresses, and to the people they were portraying. And I have such a love for this film. I really do.
It's gonna be a fucking pleasure to get to not only watch this. I've never seen Freaks, but it's not to say that I have not watched 100 things to do with it. I have not read shitloads about the the movie itself, the people, the actors who are in it, I can't wait to dive into this one. We flipped a coin last week to decide which episode was going to go, mine on Psycho or Dan's on Freaks, and we got to do Psycho today and Freaks next week. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Freaks. I'm also looking forward to, can I just mention, this is coming out on Monday the 2nd, so it is Beetlejuice 2 week. Beetlejuice 2 comes out on Friday. Now, I've avoided every single trailer. I've not
Oh,
seen
you lucky lady.
not seen one. I vaguely sort of heard it when I was in the cinema, but I had my fingers in my ears. I was going la la la. So I'm booked for Friday night to go and watch Beetlejuice, and you will know my genuine opinion of it in 2 weeks' time, because by the time the next film Freaks, I won't have seen it yet when we film Freaks, but I would have seen it for the next one.
We're literally recording the night before she goes. Actually, I'm seeing it on the Friday as well. The early reviews of it, it's like Burton's back.
Yeah, but they say that.
Yeah, I know, but it's like Burton's back in his happy place. You're gonna fucking love it.
I just care about Keaton. I couldn't give a flying fig about General Ortega. Sorry, man.
Catherine O'Hara. No, that's all I'm bothered about.
I just wanted to shout, David. Why do you have a face like a disgruntled pelican?
Fold the cheese.
Why are you mixing this? I don't know.
Fold the cheese.
Fold it.
It's what me and Amy do when we run out of conversation. We'll go, fold the cheese.
Oh, bloody love Moira. Honestly.
Oh, I love Catherine O'Hara.
She's had incredibly iconic characters along the way, but Catherine O'Hara, there was something about Moira. She just took her to a ridiculous place where
I love that.
I help loving her.
I wanted to just dress in monochrome for the rest of my life because of Moira Rose.
My wigs and name them all.
I saw Catherine O'Hara sing. I went to the Danny Elfman anniversary show of Nightmare Before Christmas, and the only original person who wasn't there was Rubens.
Right, yeah.
But Catherine O'Hara singing Sally's song. It bawled me eyes out. It was beautiful. But that's all to come. We'll tell you our opinions on Beetlejuice because we both would have seen it at the same time. So there you go.
Yes.
But that's all next time. We are on YouTube every Monday at 8 o'clock. The audio for this episode and any other episode associated with Nerdy Up North goes up on a Tuesday because that's when I do them. Yeah. And you can find the links for Bleeding Marvelous, Monsters Up North, and Nerdy Up North. Where, Dan? Ooh, with the peachy nails.
It's actually Hive is orange, but it's not coming across that colour.
Oh no, I get it now. Yeah,
like Hive is orange.
From a distance, it looks peachy. Yeah, but then when you put them up close, it's really orange. Again, if you're listening on audio and you want to go and see Dan's lovely nails, come and visit us on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, why don't you subscribe? Hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. If you are listening to us on YouTube, on audio even, tell us, let us know. I actually looked at the stats the other day. We're quite big in America. There are some names I didn't recognize. The downloads in America are quite high, and I didn't recognize half the names of the places that are downloading us. So hi. Thank you. We so appreciate it. Sorry for my northern tone and her Cockney accent. Thanks for sticking around.
Oh, blimey, governor. Got to clean my chimney.
Didn't. I've just finished a book about the East End of London and I'm sick of reading Cockney slang. So that's
Mary Poppins.
Just so you know, that's not how they all talk. I promise. That's it. Until next week. Well, there's nothing else left to say. Say goodbye, Dan.
Bye, Dan.
Stay spooky, everyone. Bye-bye.